What's up, guys? It's Chris RST. Today I'm making a video on rebuilding the engine on this newly picked up TTR 125 2004 Yamaha. So I picked this bike up on Facebook for a few $100. They basically said that the engine did not work. I saw visually that the top end was replaced. So I gave the guy an offer, picked it up. Bike was in decent condition, not great, not bad, but doable. So upon getting it home, immediately tried to kick it over, no luck. So I was like, all right. It didn't feel like there was a lot of compression in the engine as well, so I immediately put a compression test on there. 0 psi on the compression test. So I pulled off the spark plug, pulled off the intake, pulled off the exhaust, spun the engine over by hand a few times. No interference, but everything was working fine. New piston, which I did verify before I opened it up. So it had a new top end. Now it looks like the person who owned this before must have replaced the top end, but when they replaced the top end, the engine did not start, which is why they probably sold it. Now, I have a mechanical background, so I've replaced the cam on my Camaro, so I'm very familiar with this part of the engine. Basically, what happened was, it looks like when they put this head back together, what they failed to notice on inspection of the head, which you should always do when you're pulling apart an engine, is that the exhaust valve here was bent. Now, if you didn't know what you're looking for, you probably wouldn't notice it immediately, especially with this situation. It's not too noticeable, right? Not too noticeable. It's a little noticeable, but at first glance you wouldn't notice. But basically, the exhaust valve is bent on this. Intake valve is good, but exhaust valve is bent. So, how I came to that conclusion is, basically, first thing I did was stick a light into the exhaust port. It looked different from the bottom. And I did the same on the bottom, here, in the cylinder. And I immediately noticed that there was a lot of light gap coming through this exhaust port. So just to verify, I did the same on the intake port, which both valves have not been lapped yet. And the intake port has very little light coming through the port. Now, once this is lapped, there'll basically be no light coming through. But you can see when I spin this, there's very little variation. Right? Very little. Just needs a quick valve lapping job, and that's it, right? So let's put it out. So this is your intake valve, right? Needs a little cleanup. Nothing major. Put that over here. Exhaust valve. That's the inside of the intake valve, right? A little rust, nothing too bad. This is where it gets nasty on the exhaust, as you can see. Stick that in there. Turn it, you can see. See how much variation there is? See how much it opens right there? Clearly bent. Clearly bent. You can see it's not rotating straight in the cylinder. It's kind of wobbling around. And this is me pulling on the valve too. If I just kind of let it do its thing, you can see it's all over the place, right? Same thing on here. Let's see. That's hard to tell. You can't really tell in the video, but yeah, that valve is shot. Let me pull out the valve here. You can see. You can kind of tell. See the slight bend to it? There's a very slight bend to that valve, which is causing the valve to not seal. As well as if you put on a flat surface, it kind of wobbles a little bit, right? Compared to the intake, does not wobble. No wobble. Wobble. Should not wobble. It should be flat. It should be level. Yes, there are some slight deposits, but even with a valve lap, it's no good. It's bent. It's cooked. So that explains why when they put the head back together and they went to probably start the engine, no luck, no compression. And that's why I got for a steel. This is why it's very important if you're rebuilding the TTR 125 engine, because a lot of people do top end jobs on these. It's important you inspect your valves, or at least inspect the clearances at the time. Or at least, you know what, the head's already off, just do a valve hopping job, clean it up a little bit. This one looks like it wasn't even touched. It just, they pulled the head off, did the top end, and slapped it back together. That would explain why this engine was not running properly. So what I did is I ordered, you can kind of see too. So that's your valve guides, spark plug. It needs some cleaning, but we're gonna lap the valves, and then basically we're gonna lap the intake today. The exhaust, we're gonna have to wait until we get the new valve. But once we get the new exhaust valve, we'll lap this exhaust valve, and then slap it back together and just start right up. I will be making a video on when I put this head back together, on how to put the head together. As you can see, let's turn it around. So that's your exhaust side. Here's your cam. So your cam would sit here, right? Your cam sits there. It's a one lobe cam. Your cam stay. I will make a video on how to properly put this back together, because there's very little videos on YouTube how to properly put this together, at least in modern times. I might replace the valve seals while I'm in here. I think it's a good measure because they probably were not touched. But yeah, so that sums up the video on why this TTR 125 would not start and had zero compression. This is just good information for those guys that maybe they have a similar situation where they did a top end job, they put it back together, and there's no compression. Possibly an up-end valve. They're very cheap. To replace the valves in this, I'm probably looking about $45-50 for new valves, new springs, all that. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll have another video on putting the head back together, putting the engine back together. I did a good opportunity while you're in here is to get a reseal kit, change all your gaskets, do all that, because you don't want to take this part again. All right, thanks for watching.